Hi guys, it's Kasim. Welcome back again. I want to begin with a couple of quotes before we get into me answering this question. The first quote is, "You're not required to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm." And the second quote is that daring to set your boundaries is about having the courage to love yourself even when we risk disappointing others. And it is true. Before I answer this question, by the way, let me say this: to truly live a remarkable life, you're going to have to disappoint somebody, right? And unfortunately, the people who you're going to disappoint, who are going to matter to you, um, are sorry, the people who you're going to disappoint, where it's going to hurt and it's going to be painful and it's going to be difficult, are genuinely going to be people who matter to you. They're genuinely going to be people who mean something to you. But I think you've got to make a choice in life, and I think this ultimately is really about choice, whether you want to allow yourself room to grow and to develop and to progress, but in order to do that, you're going to leave some people behind or stay with the people who you were with before and don't grow and don't stretch, but you've got security. And I think all of us have to make that decision for ourselves. I don't think anyone can tell us what we should be doing. I don't think anyone can really advise us about the best path. That is something that we have to look within ourselves and make a decision about what we want to do. But anyway, let me get into answering this question. So I was on Student Room and I saw this really interesting question. The question said, "I left my group and now I'm lonely." And this was by somebody called I Like Lemons 123. Love that name, by the way. And the person said this. So I was wondering if anyone had any advice on how to make friends. I left my friendship group a while ago. I left my friendship group a while ago because I felt left out and I thought it was the right thing to do. I had backup friends who invited me to hang out with them, but suddenly they both just stopped speaking to me and turned against me, and now I have no one. I'm not sure what I've done wrong, but no one is telling me anything right now, and I'm a bit confused. So yeah. Okay, so there's a lot here that I want to tackle. There is a lot. Firstly, let me say this. I believe there is something that is missing out of this. My instinct is telling me, only based on a line that you've said, which is that no one is, they both just stopped speaking to me and turned against me. And now I have no one. I'm not sure why they're not speaking to me, and no one is telling me anything right now. That statement alone says to me that there is a context which I'm missing. So therefore, as I'm going to give you my perspective and I'm going to share with you what I believe and think and what I would do in this situation, and if you were my brother and I was giving you this advice, please bear in mind that I don't know the context, but I do. My instincts are telling me there is something missing out of this puzzle. Usually, my philosophy or the conclusion that I draw is, if something isn't making sense to me, then it usually isn't. And that's because usually someone is leaving something out there. They're deceiving me. They don't want me to see something. That's usually why. So I say this to you not as a negative thing, but I say this to you to take into consideration: is this your perspective? As in, is it a truth or is it the truth? Right? In my first book, which was all about conditioning, which was the best kept secret, I talk about these two concepts called a truth and the truth. A truth is how I see things. It's my perspective. It was my experience. It's what I felt. The truth is factual. It is unbiased, right? It's a bit like the law, or like a principle, right? The law of gravity says that if you go on a building and you jump off it, it doesn't matter, and you jump off the building, you will never go up. It doesn't matter if you're a boy, you're a girl, you're rich, you're poor, you are from Africa, Nepal. If you go on top of a very high building and you jump off it, you're never going to go up. Now, you can be smart and say things like, well, what if I had wings? What if I had propellers? But if literally you had no wings, no nothing, you just dressed in clothes and you went on top of a building and you jumped off it, the principle and the law of gravity says that you will always go down. By the way, me saying that, that does not mean go on a building, on top of a building and jump off it just to test this idea. And I need to say that as a disclaimer because I'm sure somebody will be smart and try to do something silly or leave a silly comment like that. Okay. And so in me saying that, you understand that it's really, really important to look at the full context and look at, is this your version of reality or is this their version? So one of the first things that I would recommend to you is go and speak to your friends and ask them. And I know this sounds so obvious and it sounds so like, come on, Cass, is that it? Yeah. If my thing that I have found is that a lot of people don't confront things. We avoid things, we delay things, we put things off, we're ambiguous, we make assumptions. If you want to know the answer to something, and particularly if it's pertaining to a person, go and directly ask them the question. You know, so many of us, and I was doing a workshop yesterday, and I was saying to somebody that so many of us think that people are not strong, that people are not resilient, that if we ask them something that is going to devastate them, that is going to break them, that they're fragile. Human beings are not fragile. Human beings are strong. We're powerful. We're resilient. We can withstand a lot. So my piece of advice that I would recommend to you is, and as simple as this sounds is, if somebody's not speaking to you, ask them why they're not speaking to you. And let me be specific. When I say ask them, I mean in person, right? Not over the phone, not over text, not over WhatsApp, in person. Ask to arrange to see them. If they won't see you, then ask. Then you have to be. And this is where your level of communication and the art of communication is going to have to be mastered, because the person might not want to speak to you. They might evade you. They might prolong it. They might delay it. And you've got to decide for yourself whether you feel, if the person is delaying it, if the person is trying to not tell you the truth, because genuinely, if somebody has an issue with you and you're asking them to come and meet together and sort out the problem, and they genuinely want it to work, that person will arrange to meet with you. And so that's why I said, either way, you're going to find out. If you ask them and they want to meet with you and have that conversation and come to a bridge and walk together to come to a resolution, then you know. But if they don't want to, then you also know. I highly recommend to you that you don't get into this place of ambiguity where you tiptoe your way through life, particularly when it comes to relationships, where you are friends with people, but then you're not friends with people. And one of the things that you said, which was particularly alarming for me, which I would ask you to reflect on or journal about or think about, is you said that I had backup friends. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to assume, again, we shouldn't assume anything, but I'm going to assume on this particular occasion that, but what you basically mean is you have like 5 or 6 friends who you speak to, and each person has a different role. These may not necessarily be your main friends, but you will know each other. You might know each other because you go to the same school, the same college, the same uni, whatever it may be. But they aren't exactly the people who you spend and invest emotionally lots of time into, etc., etc. But I would recommend to you that you be careful about the value that you place on other people's time and look at how you relate to people. Because if you are seeing people as, to use your phrase, backup, then you're also activating the law of cause and effect. And the law of cause and effect says anything that we do will come back to us at some point, which means you at some point will also be the backup friend for other people. And the thing that came up for me I was reading this is I actually thought, I wonder, are you the backup friend for your friends who don't want to speak to you? That's what actually came up for me. Now, I'm not saying that's your truth or that's the reality for you, but I would recommend to you to explore that. Are you the backup? Is this the law of cause and effect um, in motion? And you're now feeling the effects of a decision that you made. I don't know, because what I've observed, particularly around friendships, is the more that you invest in a friendship, the more equity you're going to get out of it, right? The better you tender your garden, the more beautiful your garden will be. And I'm wondering whether you've invested emotionally, spiritually, financially, in terms of time, in terms of energy, in terms of conversation. And if you have, and you're not getting any equity, or the outcome isn't what you want it to be, then you've also been given an answer. Somebody once said many years ago, and I read it, and I can't remember who said it, that no answer is an answer, right? Sometimes people don't need, you don't always have to look at everything. Not every answer has to be written down, verbal, overt. Some things are between the lines, they're nuanced. And so it's up to you to use your wisdom and to use your judgment to discern what that nuance is based on the context of everything that's going on. And of course, that also means that you're going to have to make a decision, because a huge amount of the pain that human beings experience, particularly as somebody who works as a therapist, I meet so many people, and the huge amount of the pain that they're receiving is because they're living in ambiguity, is because they are living in indecision. They don't want to make a decision. They want to leave other people to make a decision. They want to prolong things. And I would highly, highly recommend to you that if you want to begin to move forward and keep momentum in your life, that you begin to make decisions. And again, going back to the first one of the first quotes that I said to you, daring to set boundaries is about having the courage to love yourself even when we risk disappointing others. If you make a decision, that means you're missing out on something else, or you have to let something else go in order to leave room for this new thing. You cannot embrace your destiny whilst at the same time using your hands to hold on to your history. It cannot be done, right? And so, well, you can, I lie, you can try, but what I'm saying is in order to invest and do that thing that I said, which is invest and nurture the relationships that are currently here and are in front of you, you need all your energy, right? And you got to think about yourself a bit like a battery. It's a metaphor. I'm not saying you're a battery. And you got to think in a day, you have so much energy, you have so much you vibes that you can give people, and it runs out, right? You begin off with 100%, and as the day goes through the and as you go through the day, that battery is going to diminish and diminish and diminish, and you've got to decide and discern whereabouts you input some of this. And I give you this because I see a lot of men, adults, who they go to work and they give 80% of themselves to their work, but then they go home and give only 20%. And then they're shocked at why their relationship is terrible or why they're not connecting with their children. It's because if you look at how much they've invested, they haven't invested very much into the relationship. They've used the vast majority of their battery on their work. And you may need, again, this is about decision and discerning and wisdom, because there will be periods in your life where you do have to invest 90% into your work and 10% into your relationship. But also, and again, this is your decision to make, there are going to be points where you have to change that and rebalance that and shift the focus or the energy to where you're spending perhaps 90% of your energy on your relationship and 10% on your work. Right now, it's a lot more complicated than that, because actually, for most of us, not only have we got work, we've got colleagues, we've got projects, we're studying, we've got our health, we've got to eat. So actually, there is a lot more that we've got to juggle in terms of our energy throughout the day. By the way, one of the things that I wanted to mention is that I love the fact that you recognize the importance of friendship, because a lot of people don't realize that to truly live a remarkable life requires other people. Now, a lot of lads, particularly, I'm talking to guys here, a lot of guys, we have developed the philosophy. A philosophy is simply a conclusion that we are going to use brute force and do things alone. But there's this saying, don't quote me on this, but there's a saying that goes something like this. If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go take other people with you. Um, and the problem is, a lot of people, the reason why we end up stagnant, and the reason why we end up in a situation where we've lost some momentum and we're not leveling it up, is because the goals that we are setting for ourselves, or the runway that we've laid ahead of us, is based on only us accomplishing the goals. And I say to people that part of the reason why you have no momentum and why you're limited in how much growth you are having is because your goal is too small. Your runway is too small, and you're trying to get a massive plane to get off it. And I say to people that if you want to gain momentum, build a bigger runway, and as in have bigger goals. And the bigger the goals are, the more you're going to have to bring other people externally to be able to help you with them. Does that kind of make sense what I mean by that? So, for example, I'll use me as an example. I didn't finish high school. I didn't basically do very well in high school, and I was in bottom set. So when I decided that I wanted to write books and impact people, I was forced to have to expand my range of people who I was engaging with, because I was like, I can kind of write, but I'm not a great writer. I don't know how to edit. I don't know how to do like book covers, but I discovered that there are certain people in certain areas who love that kind of stuff. They're editors, they're copywriters, they're ghostwriters. There are people who create hard paperback copies, covers of books and stuff like that, right? These proofreaders, and I could pay these people. And as I began to shift that, my goals began to become bigger and bigger and bigger, which is giving me a lot more momentum. So that's one of the things that I'd recommend to you. I love the fact that you've recognized the importance of not only friendship, but you've also recognized the importance of building a team, having people around you who can support you. The other thing that I said is find friends where you are trying to go. Oh, yeah. So you want to try and find. So when a lot of people, when they're struggling with friendships, what they try to do is that they try to associate or try to find people based on where they've been or where they are. I recommend to you that you try to find people based on where you're trying to go, right? Because not only will they have similar habits as you, they will also have the same mindset as you. A lot of the reason why a lot of us feel isolated, or we feel like the black sheep of our friendship group, or we feel like we've got friends but we don't really connect with them, or we don't really get them, is because the mindset, we're on very two different mindsets. We're thinking about building and learning and developing. They're thinking about partying and staying here. We're thinking about traveling and going and seeing the world. They're thinking about going to a nightclub and getting drunk. Right? The goals and the mindset and the aims are completely different. But if you start trying to make friends with people who are going where you're going, it's going to become so much easier, because not only are you going to be able to support each other, but you're also going to be able to relate to each other. You're going to be able to relate to each other because you're going to be having similar problems. And that's how you begin to get mentorship. A lot of people tend to think that in order to get mentorship, I have to get mentorship from only people who are ahead of me or who've achieved what I want to achieve. But actually, a lot of the problem solving and the support that you're going to get is going to be from peers, people who are literally having the very same problems that you're experiencing right now, but they've managed to be able to resolve them. And remember, people who are ahead of you have usually forgotten what it's like to be at your level, and therefore they can't really give you that many relevant tips. And things change so much, and the way things are done changes so much, that actually your peers are going to be a lot more useful at this particular stage than people who are 20, 30 years ahead of you. Don't get me wrong, you still need to listen to those peers and those mentors, because they would have gained principles, lessons, and basics, and fundamentals, that and lessons and stuff like that, are going to allow you to have tactics and strategies and be able to progress and make everything faster. But again, I hope you understand what I mean by that. Try to find friends for where you want to go, not where you've been. This, by the way, does not mean that you shouldn't have friends where you've been and where you are, right? But this is just an indication to help you to try to find some friends. Let me link on something onto that. That also basically means is you're going to have to discover what it is that you want. Because if you don't know what you want and you don't know where you're aiming, then it's going to be very difficult for you to find friends. So you might find that actually your issue isn't friends. Your issue that you're struggling with is that you haven't found your mission, your purpose, your drive. And just start. What I would say to you is get your journal and start writing down things, or not even a journal, get your phone, and on your phone, just in the notes, if you've got an iPhone, just start writing down things that you'd like to do, restaurants you'd like to go to, places you'd like to travel to, how much money you'd like to earn, where you'd like to live, lifestyles you'd like to experience, that sort of stuff. As you set that, so as you begin to write all of this sort of stuff, you're going to start building a picture of what your life could look like. So I hope that's useful for you. What else here? Don't victimize yourself, use it as growth. So you said here in one of your comments, you said something like this. You said, I'm not sure what I've done wrong. And when you said that, the first thing that came up for me is, why are you blaming yourself? That's really what came up for me. I was like, yes, of course, you've got to take accountability, and all of us has a role that we play in the things that happen to us, but we don't want to use it as a bat. We don't want to use failure um and things that are negative that have happened to us as a baton to beat ourselves with. I think it's um Jordan Peterson who says that the past isn't there for you to use as a baton to hit yourself and harm yourself and stop yourself. The past is there so that you can learn from it. It isn't there so you can just keep replaying the same negative memories over and over and over again. It's there so you can learn, so you can extract the good bits from it, so you can extract what works and what doesn't work, right? So what I would recommend to you is, you've learned something now. You've whilst you're going through this stage of looking at your friendship and what's going on, you're learning something. You're learning something about you. You're learning something about people. You're learning something about friendships. This is a lesson, right? And the more of these lessons that you can begin to extract, and these principles, the the more successful you're going to become as you get older in different areas of your life. In other words, what I'm trying to say to you is, don't use what's happened as to victimize you. Use it as a way to refine your philosophy, because you're still young, right? If you're writing on student room, I'm assuming you're under somebody who's under 25. You're still young. Like, you're going through what I call the coming of age. The coming is of age is a period where you're trying to discover stuff. What works, what doesn't work, what's good, what's bad, what's too much, what's too little, where do I fit, where don't I fit, what are my instincts telling me, what are they not telling me? You're in that process, so you're trying to experiment and do stuff. Therefore, you cannot make conclusions when you're in the experimentation stage of your life. Does that kind of make sense? But you can begin to just refine stuff. The other thing that I wanted to say is, I love the fact that you know your worth. I love the fact that you left your previous group, because by leaving your previous group, it says something about you. It says, you know what, Kasim? I don't really like how these people are making me feel. I cannot tell you how many people in life stay in relationships, stay in workplaces, stay in teams, stay in areas of their life where they're not fruitful, where they're not growing, which are cancerous for them, right? It's killing them, it's draining them. So I love the fact that you've got to a place in your life where you've began to explore a little bit about your worth is, right? And this is particularly hard for men. I was watching this video yesterday, and the video was talking about how so many men end up basically putting everybody ahead of themselves, right? We're brought up and conditioned in Western civilization to put women first, to put our parents first, to put our work first, and we end up in a situation where we've neglected ourselves. And we get to a point where we no longer even know what we want. We no longer know what serves us. We no longer know what fulfills us, because we've been so used to spending our lives trying to impress other people, whether it's the trainers, whether it's where we live, whether it's the car. And I love the fact that you began to look at when you left the previous friendship group and it wasn't serving you. I love the fact that you began to look at your own worth and you began to realize, damn, I'm valuable. Like my life is unique. Like I hold significance. Like there are other people where I could fit into their life better. Like I could play a major role in their life instead of being on the in the background as an extra in other people's story. I love the fact that you've been able to do that. And I think it's so courageous. So I don't know whether I've helped or I've given you some tips, but that's where I'm going to finish off. And I hope it's been of some value to you. You know what to do. Send me a message, ask me any questions, all the usual stuff. I'm more than happy to answer anything. But apart from that, thank you very, very much for listening. And I will speak to you very soon. Bye for now.